This gate that God would use to come to meet Adam was east of the Garden of Eden. All right? And this is important to notice because the Bible is very specific about these things. This gate was east of Eden. And that would make it the location here. Now, roughly, this is the location of the Garden of Eden. Roughly, I said, this place, maybe you can't see me. This place here is roughly the location of the Garden of Eden. Look at this. This is the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea. This is the Nile River. This is, of course, the Sinai. This is the Dead Sea. This is for you to get a clear idea of what, because a lot of Christians have no idea about biblical geography. This is the Sea of Galilee. This is, of course, Jordan River. This is Israel, by the way. Modern day Israel is this part. Now, what you see here are the two rivers that are found in the book of Genesis, chapter 2. This is called Hiddekel. In modern day, in this time, it's called Tigris, the river Tigris. Sorry about that, Tigris. And this is the river Euphrates. The river Euphrates is this. It flows from right here in the north and comes down and falls into the Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf is so called because this is Persia here. Remember, Medes and Persians? Medes are here. And Persia is here. Of course, more to the east than this, but this is the Persian Gulf which goes and falls into the Arabian Sea. So this is a bit of biblical geography. This is the area where the Bible events took place. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, "Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates." So God is saying, I have given you the river Nile. Remember, the great river of Egypt is the river Nile, the first channel of the river. That's where God says your land begins. And he says from here right up till the river Euphrates. See the straight line, it goes from Nile to almost the Ur of the Chaldees. And if you go and study further, the land, like in Chronicles and Samuel, you will see that the land that God promised to Israel is not just this little piece of land like you would see in today's maps. Of course, it's getting smaller and smaller by the day. That's not what God promised Israel. God promised Israel this place right from the Nile. Of course, this includes the Sinai Peninsula as well. It goes right up till the river Euphrates. And again, as I've said, if you go and study, all of Lebanon belongs to Israel. And this is how it looks. This is the land that God has promised to Israel. I hope you're able to see that. Somewhere near Haran, of course, some Bible teachers say right up till Mount Ararat, which is right up here. That also is a possibility, but this also could be true that The land that is promised to Israel from Haran to the Nile, from the Nile to the Euphrates, from the Euphrates back to Haran. It's a perfect, almost perfect triangle. And this is the land that has been promised to Abraham and his descendants. Remember, when David went to secure his borders, he went from Jerusalem all the way to the river Euphrates. And God says, all the wilderness and this desert and everything belongs to you. And if you also see in the Bible, the route that Abraham took when he traveled from the Ur of the Chaldees is almost the same, almost, because he never came back to Ur. But you see, he started here, Ur of the Chaldees. He went up to Haran, and there his brother Nahor died. And from there, he came into the promised land and went into Egypt and came back again. It covers almost the entire place that he journeyed. Remember what God said? Every place where you walk, that place will be yours. That's exactly how it is. This is where he traveled. From Ur to Haran, Haran to the promised land to Egypt, and from Egypt back to the promised land. He dwelt at Beersheba. And he went to other places as well later on. Interestingly, if you make a study of this, even the route, all right, the route, or how do you call it? The path of the second advent of Jesus Christ. That means the path that the Lord Jesus Christ would take when he comes back at the end of the tribulation is the same. Is the same. This is where he goes. It looks like he begins in a different place, in my opinion. He probably begins here in Haran or somewhere. He goes to Egypt, destroys it, go to Moab. He'll destroy it there. He goes to Babylon, he destroys it, goes back into Egypt, probably the same way the Israelites entered Israel by crossing the Jordan, and his feet will finally rest on Mount of Olives. This is the place, brethren. This is the place. Why is it so important? Why is this like a boiling pot in the earth? Wars and disturbances, always political, military, all sorts of things, religious, because from the beginning, this is God's chosen place. The Garden of Eden was here. This is the place that was promised to Abraham, and this is the land that will be given to Israel at the second coming of Jesus Christ in the millennial reign of Christ. It's amazing how the Bible fits together so beautifully.